All right, so this is JimmyZ from HorrorWeb.com, also known as LittleBunnyCthulhu.com, and we're sitting here with Voltaire, literally right before the show's about to begin, and we just had an opportunity to interview him right before the show, so I just wanted to say it's a pleasure to meet you.
My pleasure entirely. Oh, is this for me? Thank you very much.
Sure.
No interview is free, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
No interview is free.
That's the sponsorship part of the program.
Excellent.
We're in St. Louis, and we're in a very small venue. Do you often play venues of this size?
I normally only play arenas, but
that's what I would have expected.
No, I would say this is the average size venue that I play, except when I'm performing at conventions. And when you're playing at a convention, it's a very different affair. There might be 80,000 people. This will be my 17th year in a row performing at Dragon Con.
Right.
And there's roughly 80,000 people at that event. So when I play, I walk into a ballroom that holds 4,000, 5,000 to 6,000 people. So that's obviously a very, very, very different scale of event. Do a lot of horror conventions, sci-fi conventions, anime conventions, Comic-Cons, things like that. But my average nightclub gig is in a place like this. It's like a goth night or a goth club,
sure.
Or in this case, a really cool bar that has goth nights and burlesque nights and stuff like that. The capacity in here is probably 400, 500 people.
Okay.
That's quite a lot of folks, yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned Dragon Con. I was just in Atlanta over the weekend.
Oh, yeah?
So
were we.
Well, that was what was surprising to me. I found out that I went there for the World Horror Convention and Stalker Awards, which is a big thing with horror writers.
Sure.
And I found out that you were
Did I win? Oh, wait, I wasn't nominated.
You weren't nominated.
Son
I'm sure
of a
you
bitch.
would have.
Why wasn't I nominated? Call of the Jersey Devil, man. That's a hidden gem. I'm telling you, I have a horror novel called Call of the Jersey Devil.
I actually did not know that until right now.
It's a diamond in the rough.
Is it a trunk novel or has it been released?
It's out. It's been out for a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
I'll have to find a way to get a copy of that. That sounds very interesting.
We're 5 feet away from the merch booth.
Really? And there's copies of it over there?
Pimping my wares.
Apparently there will be a review forthcoming.
You know what? Actually, do you have $10?
Well.
Oh my God, it's $10 for the book.
See how that works?
I'm leaving with this $10 one way or another.
That's okay. There's more where that came from. But yeah, we've been down in Atlanta.
I don't like to brag, Jimmy, but you see this?
I do.
Dozens more where those came from.
Dozens?
Dozens more. Get to know me.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, you were saying. You were in Atlanta for
yeah, just down in Atlanta, and there's always talk about Dragon Con and how amazing it is. I've never been to one.
It's outrageous.
That's what I've heard. Almost a rival to Comic-Con as far as size.
It's not a rival to Comic-Con. It's better than Comic-Con. At 6 p.m., everyone at Comic-Con goes home. At Dragon Con for 96 hours, the party does not end. There is programming around the clock. There are bands playing till 4 in the morning. Till 6 in the morning, you will see stormtroopers and Klingons holding hands, going up the escalator together.
Sure.
To go up to their room to do whatever comes naturally when you're in the Mos Eisley Cantina. But
with Klingons and stormtroopers, that's to be expected.
But it's just the party never, ever, ever stops. It's just 4 days and nights of complete mayhem. It's so much better than Comic-Con. Comic-Con's very corporate. I mean, it's just, at this point, it doesn't even have anything to do with, they shouldn't even call it Comic-Con. It has nothing to do with comic books.
Well,
they should call it Hollywood Con.
What about Necro Comic Con?
That's
just
a
found out about
story
that
altogether.
today. So, if you don't know, Necro Comic Con is a Comic Con, and I guess just event overall that was started by yours truly. Yeah, that guy there.
We're in our second year. Last year was our first year. It is like a macabre art. Really, it's a macabre art, film, and music convention.
Which sounds fantastic.
So there's dark bands. I wouldn't call them goth bands. I would just say kind of your similar philosophy. About if it's dark, it's in.
Right.
So we had a band that was comprised. It was like a heavy metal band comprised of werewolf musicians. And
very interesting. So they were dressed as werewolves, or they were actual werewolves?
They were hairy enough just to be werewolves.
Oh, okay. So actual werewolves. Okay.
I think most of their songs are about being werewolves. And then we had a vampire lounge singer who sang some Frank Sinatra songs.
Right.
He happens to be a vampire. And then we have all these great vendors selling weird trinkets and oddities and curiosities. And we had a fright gallery, which was like our artist alley
Sure.
of macabre artists. And then there were speakers talking about demonology, and there were authors speaking about their books. It was 3 days of that. And so we're doing it again this year, on September 18th through the 21st in, I want to say, Piscataway, New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely in New Jersey, though.
I knew it was in New Jersey.
It is.
I wasn't going to try to go for the name. I just saw New Jersey.
I believe it's Piscataway.
Is it something that you can see or hope to grow to be something that in 15 years you're going to have someone young and up and coming saying, I've been doing Necrocomic-Con for 15 years.
Right.
And
that would be pretty
and
cool.
it's now 50,000 people every year.
Can you believe that 80,000 people a year come to Necrocomic-Con? I mean, whatever.
Or do you want to keep it small?
No, I don't have it. Neither is an aspiration.
Okay.
If I woke up 15 years from now and there were 80,000 people at Necrocomic-Con, I mean, let's face it, that would mean I was making lots of money. And I wouldn't hate that.
Your pocket would be thick of $1 bills.
There'd be like hundreds of ones in my pocket.
That would be fun.
Hundreds. I'd be a hundredaire. But that's not an aspiration. The aspiration is for it to be just as cool as it can be, like to just be exactly the right kind of experience. Because the other thing about Necrocomic-Con is that it's not the kind of con where you stand online for an hour to get an autograph,
right?
Or you stand online for an hour to hear someone speak. It's not that kind of con. We really take the attendee and we make the attendee the focus of the convention.
So
we have like
part of it.
Late night karaoke where the attendees sign up to sing.
Right.
We have of course, a costume contest. We have a masquerade ball. Mm-hmm. People come in costume and they dance at the masquerade ball. We have panels that are suggested by attendees who then run the panels.
Oh, that sounds great.
And then bands apply to be a part of it. So part
of why I was wondering if it would kind of behoove it to stay small, because when you get bigger, it gets harder to do those kind of things. It's harder to feel intimate when there's 50,000 people.
Sure, but I'm not a fan of trying to make things not be.
Right.
I'm not a fan of trying to make things not grow. You know what I mean? Like if it wants to grow, it should grow. And believe me, Dragon Con is preposterously intimate. There's 80,000 people there. And you could go to events where you feel like you're one of a million people there, but there are so many different tracks that if everybody in this room went, we could all have a completely different weekend.
Sure.
Like we could
never
literally,
see each other.
if 10 friends went to Dragon Con and all went their own way, you might never see each other. You may never take in the same two panels, or speak to the same two guests, or go to the same two parties, or see the same two bands, and you would have actually a very, very personal experience.
Sure.
So it is strange. I mean, and some of the panels, can get so specific. There's puppet making panels. You might go to a panel to learn how to make rod puppets, whereas the gross majority of the people who are at Dragon Con are not interested, perhaps, in making rod puppets.
But with 80,000 people, you're going to get enough to have interest.
So I think it's strangely intimate, and that's the other thing. The other thing that I say, this is why it's not like San Diego Comic-Con. San Diego Comic-Con is not about intimacy. It's about how many people can we make aware of the new Twilight film.
Right.
That's what it's about. So it's really not about intimacy anymore. It kind of used to be a little bit more grassroots. But Dragon Con, in case you can't tell, Dragon Con's my favorite convention.
Right.
So that's why I sing its praises the way I do.
Well, having followed you for as long as I have, I'm constantly seeing you talk about Dragon Con. I've yet to be there, but
Necronomicon is Dragon Con's dark infant cousin, a little spooky infant, like it's alive.
Right. The one that they don't talk about.
Not yet, but maybe someday it'll be its creepy little cousin.
Okay. Well, I know Mackenzie had a specific question that she wanted to ask you. I guess we'll let her throw that out there before we run out of time.
Sure. I wanted to ask about your perception of people interpreting your work. I just finished college, and I used your Edgar Allan Poe based music for a presentation on Edgar Allan Poe, for example. Right. I know many people who have used your work in presentations. And I've seen you posted yourself a blog about a high schooler, I think, who interpreted your lyrics from one of your songs
Rather angrily.
Yes. And you were shocked by the way he interpreted it.
Right.
How do you?
Well, because I mean, he was either dense or didn't bother to really listen to the song, because it was the song "God Thinks," and on the surface, God. If you don't really pay attention, it sounds very blasphemous,
right?
You know. But if you actually sit and listen to all the lyrics, you're like, oh, what the author of the song is saying is that people are always putting their own words into the mouth of God.
Sure.
So the song is not at all anti-religion; it's anti-hypocrisy. It's
right.
anti-arrogance and it's anti-hypocrisy.
But if you're arrogant, you're not going to see that.
You might not. Well, I mean, we were having this conversation in the van the other day. Like, the people who boycotted Last Temptation of Christ did not see Last Temptation of Christ.
Right.
You know, and this is a film. I went to see the film.
I saw
It
as
is
well.
not at all blasphemous. It actually tells the story as it's told in the Bible. The devil tempts Satan to get off the cross. So what's he going to tempt him with? Maybe you get married to Mary Magdalene and you have children. You don't die on the cross. You grow to be an old man with a loving wife and children and grandchildren. But, you know, certain Christians were so incensed that Jesus was portrayed as not dying on the cross. But he does die on the cross
right.
at the end, because he challenges the temptation and wins.
Sure.
But it's that myopic, like closed-minded, like, no, you can't do that. Yeah, you're going against what I believe in. But because they don't stop to take in the whole piece of art.
Sure.
To kind of understand what the whole piece of art is saying. So that's what happened in that particular case.
Sure.
But to be frank, I mean, you know, I know exactly what my songs are about, and more often than not, I find that people who the songs resonate with understand the songs the way I wrote them. Mm-hmm. Because I say the songs are battle tested. For instance, a song like Ex-Lover's Lover, which I wrote after seeing my ex-girlfriend with her next boyfriend, and like the kind of jealousy and rage that you know incites in a person. When people hear that song who are going through the same thing, they really relate to it. And I get these emails like, going through this really tough time, my girlfriend broke up with me, I heard your song Ex-Lover's Lover, and oh my God, that really speaks to me. And I say, it speaks to these people because the songs are battle tested. Because I wrote them to get through the very same thing they are presently going through, right? But once in a great while, somebody maybe sees it differently. They have their own story to tell, to derive from the song. And that's the beauty of art. So you can do that. You know, there's nothing to tell you that you're wrong because you interpret the song or the book or the illustration or the film your own way. Steve and Donna of Ego Likeness, who I'm touring with, they take it to another extreme. They don't ever want to tell. And they may never tell people what was the impetus behind the art.
I was going to ask you about that because I know some artists do that. They say, I'm never going to say what it's about. What do you think it's about?
I want you to interpret this the way you interpret it, and I want you to take away from it what you need to. You know,
okay.
I'm not that extreme. I'm happy to tell people, like, oh, well, I was sitting at an Arby's and I saw a prostitute. Actually, zombie prostitute's a great example. People are like, how'd you get the idea for zombie prostitute? And I was being driven to a show at night by a promoter, and it was in Detroit, or it was somewhere that was kind of economically depressed.
Yeah.
And we were driving through a kind of landscape of urban squalor. It looked almost post-apocalyptic. And you know, the street lamps were so old that the light that they cast was greenish. And there was a woman standing on the street under one of the street lamps. And she was emaciated and clearly a sex worker.
Right.
Clearly a sex worker. It was very sad. And I looked over and she was green. And I thought, oh my God, it's a zombie prostitute. And I was like, well, that's got to be a song.
Got to make a note right there.
and then the process of writing the song was let me write down every pun I can think about that involves putrefaction and sex. You know, like pieces falling off of the human body and sex. So that would be an example of like that's how that song came to be. And I'm happy to share those stories. Yeah. But like I said, there are other artists like Steve and Donna who are like, you interpret from the art, you take from the art what you feel, you want to take from the art, and it's just as valid. There's no right there's no right or wrong way. There's just no right or wrong way.
Sometimes it almost feels wrong when someone says, "Well, wait a minute, that's not what I meant," which you have every right to. I mean, you wrote the song, so you are the first and foremost authority on being able to say, no, this is what I meant. You know, you can't argue with me about what I meant in the song I wrote.
Well, in that particular case, the guy was actually argumentative. He was telling me what I meant. Which
exactly.
It's a different story entirely. He did apologize eventually. Like
that's wonderful.
A couple of years later, he grew up and wrote me an email. It was like, you know what? A couple years ago, I was really young, and I thought I knew everything, as we all feel we do when we're super young.
Part of being young.
And he goes, I was way out of line. I just wanted to apologize. And I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's very big of him to come back to that.
It takes a big person to say that.
Absolutely.
And besides God Thinks, what is your most? I mean, you've written songs about necrophilia, about prostitution.
All my favorite things. Yes.
What is your most controversial song besides God Thinks? Because that has to be the most controversial.
God Thinks is quite possibly, I mean, I think the first line in God Thinks is God thinks all blacks are obsolete farm equipment. If that's not a controversial opening line for a song. And by the way, again, when people hear it, they're like, wait, what? But almost every one of those God Thinks lines is a quote. So I was watching television, and a grand dragon of the KKK said that on national television. Wow. And I just almost fell off my chair.
Sure.
It's like, what a it would be a heinous. No, not old. It was like 10, 15 years ago.
But I mean, it was someone new saying it. It wasn't like a clip from the 50s.
It was somebody like that week
that
I was watching on television. And it's a heinous enough thing to just say, much less to insist that's what God believes.
Right.
So, I instantly was like, I got to write a song about this. Like, the shit that people want to put into God's mouth is unbelievable. So, I don't know. That might be the most controversial one.
Sure.
Probably. I can't think of another one.
Course.
I can't think of another one that's worse than that.
Now, stepping away from specifically music, you actually touch every form of media I think that's probably in existence.
Video games,
comics. Yeah. Is there anything, if you had to do one thing and say, okay, I can't do these other things because of that, what would it be? Or is that an impossible question to answer?
It is an impossible question to answer because to me it's all the same.
Creatively, it just goes.
I mean, to other people might be like, oh, well, you write novels, you make films, you make music. But to me, the medium itself, while it's a lot of fun to manifest an idea through writing or through making songs or through animating, the real excitement is in coming up with the idea.
Right.
The daydreaming is the real excitement. Having the daydream and then manifesting the daydream into something that other people can witness and enjoy. So that's the fun part. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm neither a musician nor a filmmaker nor an author. I'm a daydreamer who's not lazy. I take those daydreams and I manifest them in some way. So I just create things. I make things.
Okay.
So to me, it's not different disciplines. It's all really just part of the same process.
It's just creativity, pure.
And incidentally, it's funny because many, many years ago, like at the beginning of I was already deep into the animation career, but I just started making comic books and just started making music. And I had an opportunity to meet Avi Arad, who's the president of Marvel. And I asked a friend of mine who was working with him if he would spend 5 minutes giving me advice about my career. And he gave me the worst piece of career advice I've ever gotten in my life.
Uh-oh.
No offense, Avi. It worked out for you, obviously. It worked out for you. But he said, I walked in there and I showed him my comic books and I showed him my animated films and I played him some of my music and I said, I'm doing all these different things. Like, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? Where should I be headed with all of this? And he looked at me and he said, you're doing too many things. You should choose one thing. Why is he Italian now? I'm not sure. I guess it's because I can't do an Israeli accent. He's like,
we won't tell him.
He goes, you pick one thing. Just pick one thing and just do that. And if I did that, we would not be talking right now. Because the only reason I have any kind of success whatsoever, and I realize my success is limited, but the only reason I have any kind of success at all is because I have tiny bits of success spread out over the different media.
Right.
Like I have a little bit of success as a musician. and I have a little bit of success as a filmmaker, and I have a little bit of success as an author, et cetera, et cetera. But if you put them together, I have a modicum of success. If I focused on one thing only, then I'd only have that tiny little bit of success in that one field. Plus, all of these different things I do cross-pollinate.
Right.
So there isn't a day that goes by that I don't get an email from someone that says, "Wow, I didn't know you were an author. I've been listening to your music since Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and I just realized that you wrote. I just read your book, Call of the Jersey Devil. I thought it was fantastic." I'm like, "Well, thanks." And inversely, I've had people say to me like, "Wait a minute, you make music? I used to read your comic books in the '90s. I had no idea you had a band." So that cross-pollination, one medium feeds the other. So,
and it definitely will leave a diverse legacy, no matter what.
My CV, I swear to God, my CV reads like it reads like the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey. It was Homer that wrote the Odyssey,
Yes,
right?
it was. I'm an English major, actually, so.
Did you
You asked the right
Iliad
person.
too?
You
Did
asked
you
the
write
right
the Iliad
person.
too, or was that someone else?
Yeah, Iliad
Okay,
2.
all right.
Man,
Iliad
look at
2
you,
and
you're on a
3?
roll.
Iliad 2 and 3? The sequel?
Right.
This time it's for the fleece.
I think Michael Bay did the third one.
Oh,
though.
yeah, probably. Like that show, The Bible Continues. Like, really? Did they, write more adventures for the Bible?
Yeah, that was called the Quran.
Oh. I'm not in this video. If you are a Muslim extremist, I didn't say it, she did. So I should probably get ready for the show.
Okay. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us before the show.
My pleasure entirely.
All right, great.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Looking forward to hearing the show.
Good luck with the website.
Thank you.
Great, nice to meet you. Thank you.
Cheers.